Hi, this is me, Sandeep Unnithan. Welcome to Chakra News. Today, we're going to be talking about theater commands. Now, theater commands are where all 13 single service commands of the armed forces will be combined into just 3 or 4 integrated theater commands. Now, this is back in the news because the Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, said recently at a military seminar in Mao, Ransambat, he questioned the need for theaterization of the armed forces. He says that this was not the need of the hour, and in fact, he suggested another way to integrate the services. Now, a few days later, Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi emphasized that India needs theaterization, it needs joint commands, and he emphasized jointness of command. Now, why are two of India's most important military officials not on the same page when it comes to theaterization? Now, theaterization is something that was suggested way back more than 20 years ago after the Kargil War of 1999, where the Kargil Review Committee, which went into the reasons for the conflict, made a set of very sweeping recommendations. Two of them were the appointment of a chief of defense staff and the creation of theater commands, integrated theater commands where the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force would come together and fight jointly as one. Now, in 2019, Prime Minister Modi announced the appointment of India's first Chief of Defense Staff, General Bipin Rawat. General Rawat's mandate was to raise theater commands, to create them in about 3 years' time. Now, it's been 6 years since that announcement. We still don't have theater commands. In fact, the fact that two very significant military chiefs have made these statements suggests that all is not well. But instead of going into the logic of these arguments presented by both sides, I thought I'd talk to a very respected military analyst, Lieutenant General P. Shankar, to understand how theaters would have functioned in India in 3 of our recent conflicts. We picked the Kargil War of 1999, the 2019 Balakot attack by India and the Indian Air Force, and of course, the ongoing Operation Sindoor. General Shankar, welcome to Chakra News.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sandeep. It's an interesting conversation as I foresee it. Looking
Right.
forward.
A spin-off of the conversation we had just yesterday when we were discussing, the current news, the service chiefs taking dramatically opposite positions on theaters, on jointmanship. And some people are actually questioning whether we are back to square one now with military reforms. This is the most important military reform, in fact, after the creation of the Chief of Defense Staff. So I want to start by asking you this. We are, of course, theoretically going to look at how theaters would have played out just to examine the utility of theaters in India's context. A lot of people, the naysayers, are actually saying that, look, India doesn't need theaters. We don't fight the way the other countries fight. But then there's another very significant majority, in fact, who want theaters to be established simply because it conserves our fighting potential. It pushes all the services to fight together jointly rather than fight separately. So, General Shankar, without much ado, let's start with the Kargil War of 1999. The Kargil War, of course, everyone knows, it began in May of 1999. It lasted 2 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days before Operation Vijay came to a successful conclusion, and the intruders were pushed off the heights of Kargil. Now, General Shankar, I want you to tell us how this would have played out differently from what we saw during Vijay if we had a theater. The hypothetical scenario, this is a hypothetical scenario. If you had a Northern Theater Command, combining all the forces, the Army, Air Force, and of course, all the other elements in that theater, how would Kargil have been different in 1999?
I think the approach to Kargil would have been vastly different. It would have been probably less chaotic, less reactive, and more proactive, with the same results, maybe the better results. That's the way I look at it. Let's look at it from a very simplistic point of view. Op Vijay is the operation as far as the army was concerned. As far as Air Force was concerned, it was called Safed Sagar.
Right. So you had two different
So,
operations, two services with
yeah,
two different operations.
two different operations. And when you see the sequence of events, the way things unfolded, whatever happened in Kargil, everyone talks of lack of intelligence and things like that. More than lack of intelligence, it was the lack of accumulation of intelligence, tactical and operational intelligence, once the intrusions were discovered,
Right, right.
which could have been much better if it had been a theater commander. I mean, just
Okay. So
think.
I'm going to interrupt you here, Shankar. I'll say that, okay, the Northern Theater Commander, whoever he may have been in our alternate scenario, he detects the intrusions. The shepherds come and report him. We will follow the exact sequence of events that
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. Yeah,
we'll
we'll do
go
that.
intelligence failure and the failure of
No, no,
assessment.
that is different. I'm talking
In
of the
case
operational
Northern Theater
intelligence.
Commander comes across the intelligence, the shepherds tell him that there are intruders and the peaks, and they have occupied the Indian Army's winter vacated posts. What will
Yeah.
kind of unfold after that?
Look, see, as it unfolded, we kept discovering these posts as we got into contact with them.
Right,
Okay. And we knew something was amiss.
right,
And that sequence would have been largely followed. First, at the brigade level, it was discovered. At the battalion level, it was discovered. Then at the brigade
right,
level, and then at the div level. By the time it got discovered at the div level, things were serious.
right,
We knew that something was amiss. At that time, if there was a theater command, he would have first and foremost said, okay, get the whole resources on board.
hmm,
In actuality, what happened? The Air Force was not on board. All
right,
the Air Force and the Army were on different pages at that point of time.
yeah,
Okay. And so if the theater commander with his resources were there, he would have first put all resources to find out, look, what's the problem? What's the
right,
extent of incursion? Where do you do? And then you start making a plan. Then you make an intelligence assessment. So once you get battlefield transparency built in, it's not as
right,
if we didn't have battlefield transparency resources at that point of time. You would have made a plan to get that battlefield transparency. I don't think we did it. From what I could make out, look, I was also commanding a unit at that time. We were in the
right,
east. We were shifted overnight from there to the Northern Theater.
hmm,
And the picture we got was we don't know who's there.
right,
Mind you, I was a commanding officer, right? We don't know who's there. We don't have that clarity of thought. I thought that was very vague for being pushed into war or a warlike situation. And we said, okay, fine. We were sitting in the east. I'll not blame anyone. Uh, we said, okay, at the first instance, we as reserves were going, all that. But I still felt
hmm,
there was a lack of information and lack of clarity in what's happening there. So, if there was a theater commander, the in preparation of the battlefield or the battlefield transparency would have been far
right,
greater. That's the first thing. The second thing is, look, build-up had to take place. We were not ready for it. Eventually, after we suffered a few losses, we started building up the heavy artillery,
hmm,
right? The point is, we could have avoided those losses.
right,
For example, if you go into the details of Safed Sagar, I'm talking from publicly available records.
right,
Oh, you used air at places where they shouldn't have been used. And, we didn't train for it. We didn't prepare for that contingency. And people saying, look, the rarefied atmosphere, we couldn't shoot down on the bunkers and this and that. Look, air is not meant to take out, small targets. Okay.
bunkers. Yes,
Yeah, at that point of time, with the kind of technology we had, they
right,
had different purposes. So I thought air could have been used much better in, Op Vijay than what it was used.
Hmm.
Later, I think towards the second half of Op Vijay, air
Yeah.
was really put into effect in the right places, and we
Very
started
briskly.
getting
Yeah.
results.
When you started
But
hitting the dumps, Monto Dhalo and
Dam, Monton
Tiger
Dalo,
Head.
and all those, yeah,
Yes.
all that, and very surprisingly, we had complete air superiority at that point of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Pak Air Force didn't
And
enter the
complete,
theater.
it was a free for all. You could do
Right.
what you wanted. And it's very surprising that we didn't even pick out one gun position.
Hmm.
The sustenance of, see, the only firepower sustenance of the Pakistani army at that time was their gun positions.
Right.
And they had used, 5.5 guns, and they had brought them up
Right.
quite a
Right.
bit. And they were not on the other side of the LC, they were on this side of the LC,
Right.
right? We didn't take them out. We didn't have a plan to take them out. And those gun positions were lucrative targets. And if
For
those
the
gun positions
you're saying that Air Force could have taken out the
for
gun
the Air
position.
Force, yeah, could have taken out the gun positions.
Right.
Right? Even now, you take the enemy artillery out, the enemy is out, down, anywhere,
Yeah.
whichever, even today. Okay?
What happened during Op Vijay, Jan Shankar? Did the army not, tell the Air Force that there were gun positions and they wanted to take them out? Uh,
Look, I'm sure there was exchange of information, but we know from all the writings which came
right.
later. Unfortunately, everyone was trying to justify why they did what they did, and
Hmm.
uh, whether it's Air Force writers or Army writers, they were trying to glorify what they did and the relevance of what they did.
Right.
Hardly any articles I've seen after that where they talk what we did.
Hmm.
So I thought that plan was a successful plan. We got a lot of success. But I thought the success would have been far better if there was a theater commander in place who would have assigned roles to each to do what we were supposed to do.
Right. Right.
And
And of
I
course,
felt that the Air Force, could have been kept out of the front line. When I say front line, attacking the bunkers, Shankars, and all that,
right.
which
Right.
in high altitude is night difficult to do.
Right.
Even today, even if you have the best of, stand-off weapon systems and all that, when you
Right.
have no clear definition of where the bunker is,
Yes.
despite the fact that you have UAVs, CAO, all that, right, they will not work in high altitude. High altitude is a different ballgame.
Right.
Okay, and even today, if you're going to fight an integrated battle in high altitude, I don't see how you can do it without theater commands. And
Right.
and let me tell you at the outset, uh, the fact that the Air Force chief, he chose what he chose to speak. He's the air chief, but I don't agree with it.
Right.
I don't visualize, and Op Sindoor is not the template for all conflicts we're going to have in future,
We'll come to that,
right?
Janshan. So,
Yeah,
but
okay.
while staying on Kargil, now the big thing that you said is that if you had a theater commander, he would have a situational appreciation much faster than what unfolded in 1999. And of course, he would have an Air Force component commander with him, uh, under whom there would be a certain amount of, striking power, the fighter capability, fighter bombers, and all of that. And he would
Unity
then
of
order
command.
unity of command.
Unity
Yes.
of unity of command, and that is very important in battle. Unity of command is very important in battle.
Right, right. And then he would accordingly sequence the battle in terms of who
Yeah,
would go first, whether the artillery would go
yeah,
in, at what point, and where the Air
yeah,
Force would then come in and, hit the
yeah,
gun positions or something, and leave the bunkers perhaps to artillery.
yeah.
And
Artillery, and which artillery did ultimately that was what has happened. I feel
yeah,
we would have got. Look, I for one moment I'm not going to say that this battle would have finished faster. No,
right,
it
right,
would have taken that time. High altitude demands that kind of time, and the
right.
terrain is such that you cannot
Yeah,
wish away just because you have unity of command. You'll do it in half the
right,
time. No, you would have taken the same time,
right,
but you would have not suffered losses of a MiG 27 and a MiG 21, or
right,
Nachikata wouldn't have gone to the other side. So a
right,
lot of things we would have been better off. As two services would have felt better
Right,
that we'd fought together rather
right.
than each trying to justify I did the trick.
Right. And there was a lot of post,
Yeah,
battle analysis writings that came out, which said that,
yeah, a
we were
lot
on
of,
the same page.
yeah,
The army was upset the Air Force didn't come in when it was asked to. It became a
yeah.
political issue as well. So I think all of that you're saying could have been avoided with this. But, now coming to 2019, 20 years later, you have on the 14th of February, 40 CRPF troopers were killed by a suicide bomber who had come from across the border. Pakistan, of course, the Jaish-e-Mohammed suicide bomber. And of course, India decided to go in and hit the terrorist training camps. On the 26th of February, you saw the Indian Air Force crossing the line of control, the international boundary, for the first time since 1971. And the camps were hit, a point was made. But the following day, on the 27th of February, the Pakistan Air Force came with swift retort, and they dropped some ordnance on our side of the LOC. And in the process, you saw one Indian Air Force aircraft going down across the LC. Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman was captured. Uh, the Indian Air Force claims to have shot down an F-16. And of course, we know that famous thing of the two pilots that were seen, the two parachutes. That's still, bone of contention, where that F-16 went down. But, General Shankar, again, now hypothetically, if we had a Northern Theater Command in 2019, when you had this suicide bombing, and then India retaliates with Operation Bandar, how would things have played out differently?
Look, there are two issues to this. Okay, how we could have done the same thing with better outcomes. That's one part of it. And second, what is the political direction given? You
Right,
know, if the political direction was to use Air Force to create an effect, then there's no question.
right.
But if that was not the case, right,
Hmm.
then the whole story is different. And that's what I want to put across. Let's regress back from what happened during Balakot and the attack on Jabatop. Jabatop is that militant camp
Yes, the target, yes.
target. Okay. You hit Jabatop. Where is Jabatop? Jabatop is in Pakistan. It's not even in part
Khyber
occupied
Pakhtunkhwa.
Kashmir. Yeah, it's in Pakistan. When you decided to attack Jabatop, you crossed the international border,
Right.
till then that time was taboo. How do you cross the international border? What will be the escalation? All that, right?
Hmm.
I thought that was the most important thing on that day, that you hit them there. It
Right,
didn't matter how many guys you killed or not. The fact
right,
that there was a militant camp out there and you hit them was more important than the number of people you killed. Okay? And the optics of that should have been the prime thing.
right.
Okay? In any case, that was in an isolated place. There wouldn't have been any collateral damage. So, did we do the right thing by using Air Force? Could we have done it by something different? In fact, I wrote about it then itself.
What would you have done differently if it were
We
left to
had
you?
missiles. Very simple. We had missiles.
Right,
We had the Pinaka guided rockets. They had the range of 70 kilometers. And
right,
this was anything between 40, depending on which part of our own side of the LC which you fired. You could have fired at about 50 odd kilometers range. And the
right,
Pinaka had as much, accuracy as which the ordnance which was used by the Air Force.
right.
Right? Why I'm saying this, let me explain. If you did use the Pinakas, which you had at that point of time, uh, and I'm very clear that we had it at that point of time because those 2 years after we tested it, and we knew we had a winner then. So, if you had just fired a Pinaka, yeah, you would have achieved everything. What all you did with the Air Force, you achieved everything there, and the escalation would have been lesser.
Right.
What maximum they would have fired a few rounds this side. Even if it did hit anyone, you could have denied it. They didn't, there was no this thing. and you could have done a lot of things much better by doing this.
Right.
You could have, right? And we were hard put to say that, look, we achieved effect.
Right.
Okay. And by the time by the time the strike took place, and by next day, Pakistan came out with saying, look, nothing happened. And we all know that, from an information point of view, we lost that. From an information and strategic communication point of view, Pakistan upstaged us, that entire Balakot or Jabba Top strike.
Right.
So all this could have been avoided. You had to
But
do
has
two
been the
things
system.
only.
But how would a theater commander have really helped in 20?
Yeah, if the theater commander, if I was a theater commander, I would say, look, what does the direction given to me? If the direction given to me, that's why I said the political direction matters. If the political direction given to me is to send a message to Pakistan that we will not let go wherever you are.
Right.
It doesn't matter where the terrorist camp is, we'll hit you.
Right.
Okay, and we'll get effect. Right? Then, which is the best weapon for that?
Hmm.
Which is the least escalatory weapon for that? Where do I do without, you knew Pakistan will retaliate. I
Yeah.
mean, whatever you do, Pakistan will retaliate is a given. We should have been very clear by then. So
Right.
it's okay. Why should I get into Air Force and, doing all this retaliation and all that and thing? Fine, he would have next day fired two, three missiles. So what if,
Hmm.
right? Some rockets he would have fired. It would have had no effect. But you would
Right.
have done whatever you wanted. You could have built your narrative. You could have said, look, I fired this. Even if these rockets had missed, you could have said, no, we didn't. This is just to give you a warning that we can hit you where you want. Instead of saying, you committed, you went and fired, you did something, and then you committed that I've destroyed everyone. And ultimately, we were hard put to justify the destruction.
Right. Right.
Okay. Look, I have no doubt. Let me also clarify. I have no doubt that we hit that camp and there's Pakistanis got hit badly. And that has come out now in Sindoor, where you did a pinpoint insertion and inside there was mayhem and outside there was no thing. That's
But
fine.
then see in Balakot, General Shankar, it was a political directive, right? And
I
the
don't know whether the political
was kept.
directive was, I don't
They
know
took
whether the
orders to deliver the ordnance.
let me put it this way. I don't know whether the political directive was to use the Air Force.
Hmm.
That's why I said it depends on the political directive.
Right.
If I was a theater commander there and I was given the political directive that, look, destroy that terrorist camp, it's in
Right.
Pakistan, do what you
It's in
want,
your area of
so that
responsibility.
is my area of responsibility. I had two choices. I could use the Air Force, I could use the missiles or the
Right.
rockets.
Right.
I could use BrahMos also. Look, at
Yes.
that point of time, you might have hesitated in using BrahMos for many reasons. Okay. And you had something lesser evil called Pinaka. I wouldn't say lesser evil, a lesser weapon system called Pinaka. But all three were used good to go. All three were, if I had three options, I would have taken a conscious decision how to use it and where to do it and what will be the after effects.
In the existing thing, I'm again, playing the devil's advocate. In the
Yeah.
existing scenario, 2019, you have the Northern Army Command, of course, over there. But
Yeah.
doesn't he have all these capabilities at his disposal? He has BrahMos regiments, he's got Pinaka, he's got artillery. Why would he not be tasked to deliver
Well,
the
that's why I said the decision of this entire story probably was taken in Delhi.
right,
And
right,
it was not given to the theater commander for effect. And that is the defect in our planning system.
right,
Look, you tell that theater commander, I want this political effect. I want this effect. You do what you have to do and come back to me with a plan.
right?
Then, if the best fit would be, the least non-escalatory and the least cost effect. Cost is also an effect, isn't it? So
Yes,
all these things fit in what? A Pinaka. I've written
right,
about this. I'm not saying this in hindsight today. I've given you the link for my article which I wrote on my blog. Right? It is in 2020, I think I wrote this. So there won't have been so much fuss, but the message would have gone home.
right.
Yeah, if however the political direction was to hit them with Air Force, then it matter is different.
Yes,
Then as a theater commander, that's the restraint I'm with functioning. Then I must use
Right.
the Air Force and accept whatever happened thereafter.
Yes.
Right? One. Number two was that if the operational aspect of this whole story was given down to the theater commander and said, you execute the operations, we'll take care of the rest. Then our
Right.
strategic communication could have been done from the army headquarters and in Delhi better. You could have
Right.
thought through this very clearly and said, look, if this strike is a success, fine. Then we can always say that, look, we've hit the terrorists. If the strike is not seen to be a success, the optics of it are not good. You say this is strike across the bows. We've done this. Next time we'll do actual damage.
Right.
You know, so the moment the person, you didn't have that buffer you didn't create between the theater command and the overall your GHQ, right? So the GHQ could have done the strategic communication. The theater commander would have done the execution.
Right.
So I think from that point of view also, uh, uh, if a theater commander was there, it would have been far better.
Would have been far better, of course. 2019.
Yeah,
Now,
and and of course, the theater commander would have given options, right? Given the political directive given to him, he would have come back and given options with
hmm,
his logic. And then the three chiefs and the RM and the PM could have listened to him and then had a discussion and then said, okay, you do this. That process
right.
would have been better. And the thinking through is better. But as against the two chiefs sitting and trying to discuss something, okay, you do this, I do this, then the backup options, all that, everything. Then the responsible, again, unity of command. I
Unity
get
of,
back to that thing, unity of command.
right.
And the whole course would have been completely different. I mean, I don't know. Again, is that political directive what was given? Your advice to the political hierarchy would also been that, look, these are the three options. Now tell us what you want to do.
Right.
It's not a matter of one force doing it or the other force doing it. It's a matter of what you want to do to the enemy.
To achieve the effects. Right.
Yeah, this is a national, process. This is not
Right.
an individual service, program. Yeah.
Operation Sindoor, General Shankar, 2025, which the year began with the Defense Ministry calling it the year of reforms. And we all thought that meant that reforms meant the creation of theater commands, which is the most significant unfinished agenda of the creation of the post of Chief of Defense Staff. That was phase one. But of course, on the 22nd of April, we saw the 26 Indian civilians massacred in cold blood in Pulwama by Pakistani terrorists. And of course, the government of India uh, asked the Air Force to go ahead with Operation Sindoor, which they carried out on the 7th of May with a series of airstrikes all across Pakistan, hitting terrorist training camps, starting from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to, very interestingly, Pakistan's Punjab province, where you've hit two very big training camps, headquarters of terrorist organizations, Bahawalpur and Murid-Ke, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which we've never struck in the past. So this was another red line that the government had crossed. And of course, the conflict kept escalating. It raged for 88 hours before a ceasefire or a pause in operations, as we're now calling it, was reached on the 10th of May, when the Indian Air Force inflicted heavy damage on Pakistan's airfields and, of course, brought down several of their aircraft. General Shankar, 2025, theater commands are still not there. As a cynic, I would argue that you achieved what you wanted to do with Pakistan without theater commands. So what's the need for theater commands in 2025? We did very well. It's a different matter that we may not have been as effective on the information warfare front and the narrative building. But if you look at it, the effects on the ground, shattering Pakistan's air bases, destroying his aircraft, causing a lot of damage. That low-cost option that Pakistan has always used for sponsoring terror in India, that suddenly became a very high-cost option for him. But tell us how theater commanders would have performed, how theater commands indeed would have performed differently in 2025 had they been around, of course.
Okay, let's put it this. First thing I'd like to put across. I don't think the government told the Air Force to go ahead to hit the terrorist targets. I think that from what we could gather, the government, what I have heard various people in the government speaking, including the defense minister, the RM, the PM, and various briefings, all that. And having heard the air chief and the army chief at various places, and the CDS also at various places, ever since that happened, one thing is clear that we wanted to hit the terrorist targets. 9 terrorist targets were chosen with a lot of care. Okay.
Right.
So that plan was made in Delhi and plus minus whatever. And then the decision was taken that 7 targets will be handled by the army and 2 targets will be handled by the Air Force. Okay. And this is where a theater commander was missing.
Right. Explain for us how that would have made
Yeah,
a difference.
that's the crux of the thing. You wanted to hit 7 targets.
Right.
2 of these targets were in depth, Muridke and the Bawalpur, 100
Deep
plus
inside
kilometers,
Punjab pockets.
deep inside. Now, having the experience of Balakot, whatever happened in Jabato Balakot thing, that you use air, they'll use air. Now that escalation, air-to-air escalation and everything was, part of the deal. Is there a better weapon you could have used? Did you need to use air? All these, I'm not questioning the fact that we did use air, not use. The fact is, if there was a theater commander, he would have asked himself all these questions. Which is the best weapon to take out these targets?
9 targets, right.
Yeah, 9 targets, out of which 7 were anyway taken out by the army.
Right. So you're looking
Only
at
2 were taken out by the FO.
just to put the caveats here, you're looking at a very competent Air Force across the border, the Pakistan Air Force.
Yeah, we knew
uh,
that.
we knew that they had the fighter
We
thing.
knew that.
They kind of knew the kind of operation that we would carry out to strike back at this terrorist incident. And in a sense, you were going into a very heavily contested airspace. That's what you're driving at. The fact that you should
No,
have
look,
used.
no, I'm not looking at that way. Let me speak the way I thought. And this I thought is not again an aftermath. This is an extension of what I thought did immediately after Balakot. Look, I'm a gunner. I think like a gunner, right?
Right.
And the thing about a gunner is he thinks big, like the Air Force.
Right.
Okay, because after all, we have the BrahMos and the Pinakas and the Smirch and all that. So we have the capability to think deep. So I'm talking to you from that perspective. If you had to take out 7 targets
Right.
or 9 targets, and these 2 targets which are in depth, could you have done it with any other method? Could you have taken it out with 2 BrahMos strikes? After all, use the same BrahMos you used to hit Nurkan Air Base and Sargodha and all that. Why couldn't you use here? Why couldn't you use a ground-based missile launchers to hit
How would
these
that have
people?
helped? How would
No,
it
no,
have
wait,
helped?
wait, 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 wait. Don't interrupt me now.
Hmm.
Listen, could I have used these 2, targets I could have taken out with ground-based launchers,
Right.
right? And kept my Air Force ready to hit their Air Force if they interfered.
Right.
Rather than my Air Force trying to hit both these air elements, trying to hit both these targets, and then trying to defend myself against all that. I could have kept, and I would have got operational surprise. I could have shown them that I'm doing something with the air and hit them from the ground.
So you're saying
Here,
that the
what we
ground.
have done. Wait. Please, wait. So you showed your air and you attacked by air. The entire air surprise factor was also not there. They were waiting for you.
Right.
And they were waiting for you for 4 days, right?
Hmm.
And you did a lot of things for operational surprise and all that, and you did achieve surprise. Equally, they did achieve some surprise. Let's face it. You have
On
to
the
be
first.
honest when we do this. Yeah,
Right.
right. But I thought, from my money, even thinking back, if you had mixed in the ground element of this thing, the whole surprise would have been different, and their response would have been completely, off track.
Right. So
Right?
again, my question is, where does the theater commander?
Wait, yeah, the theater commander, if the theater commander has been told these are the 9 targets to destroy and these are
Right.
the resources, he's got the thing whether to use air or
Right.
whether he wants to do a ground insertion and take them out or use a ground-based launcher. And he would
Right.
have thought, okay, which is the best fit, which is the best plan, and which is the one which will give me best surprise, which will give me the best results.
With the least
Okay?
amount of casualties.
With the least amount of casualties and cost.
Right.
If I lose in this, I mean, let's look at cost. Cost is important. If in this entire process, I had the chance of losing even one aircraft vis-a-vis
Right.
one ground-based launcher, what's that cost differential? I lose a launcher, 10, 12, 15, 20 crores. What if I lose a Rafale or a MiG or whatever? Right? All these would have been factored in long back,
Right.
right, by a theater commander, and the theater commander could have gone back and said, look, you've given me 7 targets. These are my 3 options, and this is what my best option is. This is my worst option. This is the thing. And politically, you tell me now what I want to do. Maybe then this entire air war which took place, we need not have, it wouldn't have happened. Look at the scenario.
Right.
If there was a theater commander and he decided I'll take out the 7 targets using ground-based systems, use air cover. Simple. Okay. The target should have gone, and Pakistan wouldn't have probably responded with air, share, and all that, whatever they did.
Right.
And, they would have done something, but it wouldn't have been, probably not. And it would have been less escalatory,
Right.
right? And in which case, your whole story would have been completely different. Might have. Okay. I am just not decrying the fact that the Air Force did a good job. They did a fantastic job.
Yes.
Okay, full marks to the Air Force. My hat, my complete salutes to them. Our people fought beautifully, and the
Yes.
results are outstanding, right? But if there was a theater commander, the control would have been better.
Right.
And I
So
think,
explain that. When you say control would have been different, how would that? How does that work
the,
out?
the very planning process and the control, there would have been 2 options. Look, let's give the army or the ground-based systems
Yeah.
the task of hitting the targets, the
Right.
terror targets, which they would have done. The BrahMos also would have done. If the BrahMos can hit, Noor has basically would have hit that thing in Muridke and Bawalpur also. Right, it's not a thing, and you didn't have to fire your aircraft at all. You would have waited for the other guy to get in, and you hit him in an ambush. So the whole story
Right.
would have been different. Your thinking would have been different. The point is, was this thinking there in the in Delhi,
Right.
right? And
This
you,
joint.
yeah, if there was a single point commander, he would have said, best fit, this is my options.
Right.
Were these options very clearly given to the political hierarchy or this thing? Or if the theater commander had said option 1, ground base, option 2, part ground, part this thing, could have been better? Or
Right.
is it that, did you have to get the Air Force into this whole story
Hmm.
the way it did? Right?
Right.
It sounds macro at this point of time, and it is macro. We taught Pakistan a lesson. Maybe this
Right.
is the best decision to be had. Look, all I'm saying is this, maybe what happened was for the best.
Right.
Right? I am not decrying that. If the theater commander had been there, could have a different decision been taken? A more better decision, was it on the cards? Or was this the best decision? To say that this is the best decision, well, in hindsight, anyone can say what he wants, including me. But I think a theater commander would have generated better decisions. And
Right.
the responsibility is his. You've given him the task, destroy the targets.
Hmm.
It's not to use the Air Force or the Army. Best fit,
Right.
least cost,
So
least effect.
there would be one theater facing Pakistan. I mean, that's
Yep.
what the plan is.
Yeah.
So in that theater, it would be all the Air Force commands and all the Army commands being collapsed into one single theater.
Yes.
So the theater commander who's based wherever he is in
Yeah.
Allahabad,
Wherever.
yeah, and he then looks at the whole theater and he gives the government the options that this is the
Yes.
following that I would do. And there wouldn't be the possibility of another theater commander coming
No,
in, or
how there
it's just a
no other
single
theater
theater.
commander. It's a
Right,
theater commander. He would take the decision. He would say, I have these resources at my disposal. I need more, some of these resources more, whatever. That's a different story. But
right,
with the resources I have, this is the best way to attack these targets. I will attack them.
right.
To my simplistic way of attacking, we didn't have used missiles, I mean, Air Force at all on these first two targets. You could have hit them by missiles, missile
Ground-based
strikes.
missile.
Yeah, hasn't Iran fought a war with missiles against Israel? Right? They're
Right.
no lesser, right? It's not necessary to always use the Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point is that what we did was the best under the conditions of
Right.
command and control.
Right.
This is probably the best fit.
But the
But could
existing
there have been
structure.
a,
Yeah.
yeah, with the existing structure? But like I told you, if you look at it across the spectrum, which we have discussed, whether it's in Kargil or in Balakot or at this point of time, I personally feel that with a theater commander, you would have been far better off.
Right.
Your operations would have been better controlled.
Right.
Okay. It would have been better controlled. Now, there's this argument which the Air Force puts. Look, we have only that many aircraft. You need to use them as a packet. You can't distribute them away to theaters and leave yourselves with nothing. That argument I don't agree with. I
Why is
don't
that?
agree with that argument. Yeah. It is because you don't have to dish away all your resources to all theaters every time.
Hmm.
Even when the theaters come, the theater commander can be given certain resources which are his
Right.
basic minimum with
Hmm.
the assurance of giving maximum after that.
Right.
Or with the caveat that, look, should any other sector need it, another theater need it, we'll pull it away. It's a national decision. Just
Right.
because you have theaters, it doesn't mean that everyone fights his own battle.
It's not cast in stone. You're saying all these
Nothing
post
is cast in stone. Yeah.
it can be
And you have to
removed.
understand, yeah. And and this is in artillery we practice this.
Right.
I must tell you this. In artillery is also used in a similar manner in the sense that certain artillery is kept in direct support of the unit,
Right.
infantry battalion or an armored regiment. So that infantry battalion commander or that armored regiment commander or the brigade commander knows, okay, this regiment is at my beck and call, I can fire, right? But equally, there's more artillery behind, which is not at his beck and call,
Right.
but is given to him when he is needed. Right. Similarly, if there's another brigade commander who needs fire, what is given to this brigade commander is taken and diverted and he's fired. Then he gets it back. So there is a method. There is already an established method in the army of, in support, indirect support, and placed at priority call. And I think those terminology and those operational procedures can be applied to the Air Force.
Right.
It's a matter of thinking, flexibility in thinking, which I think we need to start, using. And it is here for some reason, again, as a gunner, this is how I feel. I must tell you this. The bridge between Air Force and the Army is
Hmm.
actually the artillery.
Right.
In the good old days, when we did any operation or when we trained to do any operation or part of our teaching, it was the artillery officer or the artillery commander who used to do the fire planning.
Hmm.
And he will do the execution of that fire planning, who will come in
Right.
where and how it will come and all that. I think somewhere the relevance of this artillery fellow who used to be the bridge and the link between the Air Force and
Right.
the Army has been lost in our
Right.
teaching. And artillery is now just use the firepower kind of a thing without thinking. and that link which long range artillery gives you. Because
Yes.
as long range artillery, you're compatible with the Air Force and the Navy. As normal tube based artillery, you're compatible with the infantry and the armor.
Yeah.
And this great arm, unfortunately, the army has, said this is a support arm.
Right.
It's not, okay, it's not a combat arm. I think
But
these,
General Shankar, sorry to interrupt you, but the Air Force says that it is going to make the Army is going to make the Air Force into a support arm, and you have the
no,
CD,
no,
Late
that's the
General Rahul
point.
Singh.
That's the point. I think the whole story has to change. The way
Right.
we fight, the way we think has
Yes.
to change. Everyone
Absolutely.
has to. I'm not saying the Air Force is right or the Army is right.
Right.
Both are great services, us. But I think the Army itself has got its own silos. The Air Force has a silo. I think we have to change. And
Yes.
the bigger service is the Army. And I think the Army has to do this change. And a lot of what Army has to do is within. Because the
Right.
Army has to change and start using artillery in a more offensive manner.
Right.
And
Right.
especially considering the fact that the reach of artillery is
Yeah.
far more.
Right.
Today, artillery and Air Force have the same range. You have the same weapons. Okay, you should be talking more to each other to do things together,
Right, and absolutely.
right?
That's the moot point of our discussion today as well. The fact that, look, you have to start this process of integration, jointness of commands. You don't have to call them theater commands. You could even call them, as I was talking to another friend this morning, he said, call them joint commands. But you must start. You can't be 25 years later, moving the debate back to square one and saying that, look, we don't need it. The fact is that every single country in the world has gone into some kind of jointness or theater commands. And India is the only major country in the world that is standing and fighting separately. And that is the real reason why we are discussing this today. But I'd like to thank you again, Jan Shankar, for that very illuminating discussion. The fact that how we could have done things better. It's hypothetical, of course, but just to give our viewers an understanding of how we could have fought differently. In Kargil, of course, Balakot, and the ongoing operations Sindoor. Thank you very much, Jan Shankar.
Thank you. Welcome.